Both the House and the Senate approved a massive spending bill, $1.1 trillion to fund the government through 2016, and it was sent to the desk of President Barack Obama that is expected to sign it. This bill covers the functioning of the government. It touches from Obamacare to cybersecurity, because as many of these massive pieces of legislation, a lot of riders get attached, and many of them were strong enough to convince the Republicans to sign on this bipartisan bill. It's the very first bipartisan effort to prevent a government shutdown, Margaret, and we see some very interesting things. One of the points that really got the attention of the public and the outcry of the public is that the 14th rider of this massive spending bill was the Cybersecurity Act of 2015, with a lot of the provisions of anonymity that help the users remain anonymous stripped from this bill because it was something that was going to be approved.
Mm-hmm. Well, CISA increases the vulnerability of personal information. There's no question about it. It's the bastard son of the Patriot Act. You know, there was a lot of uproar in 2014, and it held up CISA at least for a year and a half. But the fact that the squeak through inside this bill with little uproar, where are the privacy advocates? That's what I want to know. It's really disturbing that this passed so quietly.
This bill was the perfect vehicle to approve a lot of other legislations that were controversial, to say the least. One of them was also the lifting of the export ban on crude oil from the United States. For the first time in 40 years, the United States is going to be able to export oil. That's a big victory for the Republicans, and one of the weapons that Paul Ryan used to lure enough Republicans to get the majority of his bloc. That's a very important measure because it shows that at least they're working together again. Democrats, they also got something out of this deal. They got a lot of tax breaks for renewable energy, but some argue that it does not offset the emissions that are going to be created by exporting oil again.
Right, there's no question about it. So Republicans largely got major aspects of what they wanted through the budget. Also Democrats, but going back to CISA briefly, I'm disappointed that that passed. I understand that there are some good things in this bill, we're going to get to them in a second, that people might be happy about. Not so much about, you know, the lack of balance when it comes to energy policy or privacy, but as I understand it, the 9/11 responders provision did pass with some help from Jon Stewart himself, who actually had to take to the public stage. He did, you know, a comedy segment in which he appealed to people, was able to get the squeak through as well, which is one good thing.
Yeah, he's been lobbying for this cause for a long time. He did a sketch in his show a long time ago where he was sitting there with many of the first responders that were at 9/11. And the first time they did the skit, there was 4 of them, and he just did the skit not too long ago, and there was only 1 survivor, trying to make a point and lobby in the Hill that they need to continue this support for the first responders.
I mean, how disgraceful is it that we have 8,500 first responders that still have physical and emotional elements of responding to 9/11 that day, and we don't want to care for them. We don't want to offer them even the most basic health care to be able to deal with what they, you know, they put their lives on the line. They're still alive. They need these benefits. So that's one good thing the budget did.
Yeah, well, Republicans didn't got everything they wanted. They didn't got Planned Parenthood defunded. Planned Parenthood will be funded by the government, and also they didn't got to get harder restrictions on the influx of Syrian refugees. Another thing that many Democrats didn't like is the fact that Puerto Rico was completely ignoring this spending bill. Puerto Rico is facing one of the most strenuous financial crises of the history of this territory, and the government decided to ignore that completely. There's no relief for Puerto Rico, but there was some good notes on this spending bill. It was attached to $620 billion in tax cuts for small businesses in general, and low-income workers.